Recently, I had the opportunity to check out Sony's latest film, Morbius, starring Jared Leto. Now, Morbius is a Spider-Man villain who is in fact a vampire, and this movie sets or takes place in the same universe as the Venom movies starring Tom Hardy, but it's unclear as to how it connects to any other Spider-Man based properties at this time. It tells the origin of this character and to how he became a vampire and kind of the first little bit of his story. This is the second movie that we've had this year that has featured a character that is related or has an indication with bats. And this is one that is particularly worse than the previous bat-based film that we had with the Batman. Now, I will say right off the bat that when going into this film, I had already read a lot of different reviews regarding this movie, and a lot of them have been very, very negative. And so I went into this film with some rather low expectations regarding what I'd be seeing. And because of that, I came out not loving this movie by any means, but I don't think it's as bad as a lot of those reviews have been saying. There are a couple of things that I did find rather good in this movie. I did enjoy Jared Leto's performance, for instance. I thought that he did a much better job portraying the character of Morbius than when he portrayed the character of Joker in the Suicide Squad. And I did find some of the aspects of the character to be interesting. Some parts of the movie were rather cool to watch and entertaining as well. So that'll get us into the entertainment side of this film. It's for the most part entertaining throughout. There are some kind of dull times during the middle. There's a lot of talking, a lot of science stuff. But when the things really pick up, when there is action, it's for the most part pretty entertaining to watch. It is fun to see him being a vampire, whether it's the parts where he's kind of going full bad or at the times where he's going good guy. I liked both aspects of that. There were some issues that I did have with the fighting, though, and it's some of the same issues that I had with the Venom films, is that Sony likes to do very slow motion shots in their action, and they'll have these moments in which, like, the characters are grappling each other, and it's like they're coming apart. You see it in Venom when he's fighting in the first film, and their symbiotes are coming off of each other as they're fighting each other, and in this one it's like they're vampire elements. I don't really know what it is, but they love those style of shots, and I personally do not like them very much, but they are featured in this film like they were in the Venom universe as well. But aside from that part of the action, I thought the rest of it was done pretty well. It's really entertaining mainly because of the action. The rest of the film kind of jumps around between tones. There are parts where it's attempting to be scary. There are parts where it's attempting to be funny. There are parts where it's trying to be an action superhero film. And it's all of these different things, and it doesn't always mold into each other very well. There's sometimes where it's just kind of like a random comedy moment that doesn't feel like it belongs at all. A lot of Marvel movies will have comedy in with their stuff, but it doesn't feel like it's jarring or that there's a sudden switch. This film kind of had that for me. It just felt like it's like all of a sudden we're doing a horror film, and then we're doing a comedy, and now we're doing an action film. And so it was just kind of different. I didn't particularly care for that. Now when it comes to the intriguing side of this and the story that is told within this film, this is where I really didn't particularly care for it, and that's because there's nothing here that I found to be very unique. There's nothing here that I found to be very entertaining on that side either. A lot of the story elements, and I won't get into them in particular, but they remind me of story elements that we've seen in previous Spider-Man-based movies. We've seen stuff like the origin of Morbius is very similar, or basically the exact same of what we see as far as origins in The Amazing Spider-Man. You have a conflict going on between some friends here that reminds me of some stuff that we saw in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. We have a lot of vampire-based elements here that likewise just kind of feel like your classic vampire stuff that you see in all these other vampire films. It didn't feel like they gave it anything that was really fresh. They didn't give it anything that was new, unique, and gave this kind of its own taste and flavor. It's different than the others because it's taken various elements from different stuff, but it's just taking so many things that I've already seen before to where I felt like I already knew what was going to happen. And there were some things that I guessed towards the end was going to go down that ultimately is what ended up happening. So it's not a terribly complicated story. It's not a very new story, and it's one that doesn't really keep you guessing or keep you wondering. You kind of can guess how the film's going to go fairly early into the film, and that was rather disappointing for me. On a cleanliness level for this film, there are a few things that you do need to watch out for. Nothing extreme per se, but there is a little bit of the swearing. There is a little bit of frightening images. That's probably the worst thing in this film, is that being a vampire movie, they do go that horror aspect at times. And while I never personally felt that it got overly scary, for younger children it could be quite frightening. So that's something that you want to watch for. The other thing would be that there is some blood and some gore in this film. They're vampires. They attack people. They drink their blood. It's what vampires do. This is not a terrible film as far as vampires for the bloodiness of it, but it is there. It's something that you do want to look out for. Those are the big things. Being a vampire film, it's scary at times, and it can tend to be a little gory at moments, but not extreme in either of those directions. So that's kind of my brief thoughts on this film, but let's go ahead and get over into my overall rating of it. So in the end, when you take all of the elements of Morbius, it's a film that is entertaining enough to keep me invested throughout the entirety of its watch, even if there were some moments where I tended to zone out and not really care so much what was happening. The story really isn't all that great. It does what it needs to, I guess you could say, but it doesn't give it anything new, anything fresh that really should happen when you're displaying a new character that we have never seen on screen before. So that was definitely a disappointment for me. As far as a rating for this film, I've kind of been bouncing back between giving it a C or giving it a C minus. And I decided that I'm going to be a little bit nice to it. I'm going to give it a C because it did keep me in my seat. It didn't make me want to leave or anything like that. I don't know if I'm going to go watch it again, but it's not super bad to where I was like, oh, this is a film that I'd much rather just never ever watch in the first place. So to me, it gets a C. And when it comes to the cleanliness, again, as I mentioned, there is a little bit of swearing, but the two major things for this film is that there is some gore aspects of it, and there also are some moments in which they lean into that horror genre, and they try and make Morbius scary. And so those are the two big things, and because of that, I'm going to give it a B on the cleanliness rating. Not something that I think is going to affect the majority of people, but for some younger viewers, you may want to be careful. It could lead to some nightmares. It could lead to some scary moments for them. So those are my thoughts on the new Sony film Morbius. What did you guys think of the film? Have you had the opportunity to see it? If you have, let me know in the comments what you thought of it, and I'll be sure to see you guys in the next video.